It feels nice, looking back on the championship season. If you didn't watch the ICPL championship, I can't blame you. Most people just watch the semifinals game. It's the most successful video on my channel, so yeah, that entirely caught me off guard. But yeah, as shown on the screen, we did win the ICPL Season 11 championship. We had such a good team, having like probably the best team I've ever drafted in my entire draft career. I wouldn't go that far, but it is definitely up there. We had such good threats like Iron Valiant, Masquerada, Terapagos was clutch on numerous occasions. The evolutions, super good. Revavroom surprised me. Yuxi admittedly kind of disappointed me, but it was super nice support. And Wando T and Heatran showed they still got it. And Meowscarada remains my GOAT in draft. But yeah, let's not dwell on the past too much. I chose to introduce this by just giving a recap and a bit of a retrospective for the last draft week before I ease into the new one. That's right, we did join another draft league. We actually joined two, but I'm not recording another one because my team in there is just completely awful, and I don't think it'd be right or just like good to make content out of a team that I don't really enjoy using. So we're going to instead record one draft league, and I absolutely cannot wait to introduce the new team to you all. Presenting to you all the Torigoth Catalyst, my new draft franchise, and yes, I cannot decide on a team name to keep forever. So this is my new draft team. You can see Suicune as the mascot. This is kind of similar to the Morade and Flamebringers. I just took a location in Xenoblade 2 and slapped on a character-specific name, and I am not going to share the meaning behind why we're called Catalyst. It's a spoiler, and it's more of an if you know, you know. So, that said, we are in a new draft league, which is actually a fairly new draft league on the scene. This is only in Season 2. One of my good friends in draft is Mr. Ryan Ditto, and he got me along to play this draft league, or to play in his draft league, Ditto's Draft Dungeon, in the top division, which is the Imposter division. Admittedly sus logic, but I'll play. So yeah, going into this draft, I had like 13th or 15th pick out of 14 or 16 coaches. I forget how many are in here, but yeah, honestly, my plan was just to see what was around and just pick whatever. And I feel like this is important to note. Unlike the ICPL Draft League, this is a National Dex Draft League that takes place on Pokemon Showdown. So literally any Pokemon is allowed, minus like some like uber tier threats like Kyogre and Groudon. So yeah, I had to pick things within reason. Granted, there are some Pokemon like Chinpao still available. Actually, was Chinpao available? I'm not sure. I think Chinpao was available. Yeah, because I played one week 1. So yeah, so threats like Chinpao and Megalodios were available in this draft. So very much going into round 1 and 2, I wanted to see what was there, and B, I wanted to see what two Pokemon would pair up well together. So the first pick is something that I wanted to use for a while, and I actually initially picked it in ICPL before changing it in Grace Period, but that was Ursaluna Blood Moon. I knew I'd get a good chance to use it, and this thing has Terra allowed on it for whatever reason. This thing is a monster of a Pokemon. The stats don't look like anything special, but it's massively bulky with a 113 base HP stat, 120 base defense stat, and a pretty middling speed F stat, but with speed being like super low, it can use those EVs that it would use in speed to invest more so into bulk. And ground normal is a pretty solid defensive typing, and with the Terra ability, or the ability to Terra, I can make it a bit more defensive by tearing into a fairy type. So yeah, its ability Mind's Eye allows you to hit ghost types with normal type moves, which is useful for its signature move Blood Moon, which is a 140 base power normal type special attack. And with the Mind's Eye ability, nothing can switch in on it, especially when paired with Earth Power to hit Steel types that would resist normal type moves. Or you could, Terra into a Fire or Electric type to hit Steel Flying, or like Steel Flying types or Levitating Steel types harder. This thing is literally unwallable. So it's just a matter of playing around the bad speed stat. You want to get it in on Pokemon that it has a good matchup against, so that way you can just click Blood Moon over and over again, doing massive amounts of damage to your opponent's team. So, super stoked I managed to get Blood Moon or Luna. This is the first time I'm using it, and I hope I can do it some justice. So my second pick, I decided to get Meowscarada as a bit of a comfort pick. You know how well I can use Meowscarada. I mean, I won a championship with it just recently in ICPL. It's a fast grass dark type with Overgrow and Protean for its ability, getting access to moves like Knock Off, Triple Axle, U-Turn, Flower Trick, which always results in a critical hit, Low Kick to hit bulky steel types, and it's just super nice. It gets utility with Spikes and Toxic Spikes. It can use Trick to trick Choice Scarfs onto defensive Pokemon like Quagsire. And it is just... I can't say enough about how good this thing is. The 123 speed tier is super nice for my drafts. And the ability to set hazards in a pinch is really helpful for me. So, yeah. That's Meowscarada. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over it. You know what it does. I know what it does. It's my favorite Pokemon to use in draft right now for a reason. So, I usually liked the idea of pairing up Ursaluna with a fast pivot like Meowscarada. I saw Envy pair up Ursaluna Blood Moon with Sneasler. And this is kind of my way of, sort of mimicking that. And also, one of my friends in draft, Treyant, he picked up Ursaluna Blood Moon with a Sneasler for the BBRD League with the... So, yeah. It's a very common thing to draft Blood Moon with a fast pivot, and this accomplishes that. So... building on this, I had no clue what to pick for round 3. I know I wanted Galarian Slowking, but the next Pokemon was just I don't know, I feel comfortable with Blood Moon, Meowscarada, Galarian Slowking, but I don't know what to take next. So, I was just looking at the draft board, seeing what looked good, and what was available. And I noticed one Pokemon kept falling for no reason. We managed to get Mega Diancie. So Mega Diancie is a very fast and very powerful Pokemon, being able to hit hard specially and physically while having solid bulk. Granted, its HP stat is nothing to write home about, but base 110 defense and base 110 special defense kind of balance that out. And the 110 speed stat means it's going to be outspeeding quite a few things in the metagame. The Rock Fairy type is not really that great, especially for a bit of a ground weakness, but I don't really care much about that. Its ability Magic Bounce bounces back any status moves, so if I feel like my opponent's going to quick something like Stealth Rock, I can switch Mega Diancie in, and I can reflect the Stealth Rock back at my opponent, and now they have Stealth Rock set up on their side of the field. It adds a bit of mind games to my games that I like. Granted, Mega Diancie doesn't really want to come in on hits, which is a bit unfortunate for a Magic Bounce user, but Magic Bounce, just that element alone, makes my opponents have to like play around that a bit. And just seeing like all the stuff my opponents have to play around, they had to play around a free Terra Ursa win a Blood Moon and a Meowscarada that can run Choice Band, and then this that can hit super hard. I've gotten really nice wall breakers so far, and I needed to just like get some more bulk and some more pivoting, and also, well, Mega Diancie can use Baton Pass in this league, though it's a bit weird with the Diamond Storm move because I can't Baton Pass stat boost, so I'll have to play around that to the best of my abilities. But I ended up picking a, well, Galarian Slowking. I was surprised that it lasted this long. Usually it goes like pretty early round 3 in my experience, but it fell all the way to round 4. Granted, I was pretty much a wheel pick, so I could afford to wait to round 4 on this, but Galarian Slowking is a very bulky Poison Psychic type, 95 base HP, 80 base defense, which ain't great, but we'll get to that in a minute. 110 base def is where this thing really shines, being able to pick up the slack of Ursa win a Blood Moon to eat special hits. It has a 30 base speed stat, which is really great combined with the move Chilly Reception, which sets Snow and pivots out into another Pokemon. So I could switch Galarian Slowking in on something that it does, or that it checks pretty well. My opponent can switch out, and then I could quick Chilly Reception to keep momentum on my side, go into Ursa win a Blood Moon, or like Mega Diancie or Meowscarada to keep momentum going and just keep further pressuring my opponent's team. Another thing that this thing gets is Regenerator, being able to heal up on switch out. So I can heal up while using Chilly Reception and just keep Galarian Slowking very healthy without having to Wish Pass, which I really enjoy with this team. And then another thing it gets, which is very helpful to Blood Moon, is Trick Room, being able to flip speed stats, making Ursaluna faster than everything, and making the faster Pokemon a lot slower. For example, in Trick Room, my opponent could have something like a Noivern, and I could set Trick Room, and Ursa win a Blood Moon would be faster than the Noivern, because slower Pokemon move first. So, yeah. That's about all I have to say about Galarian Slowking. This thing put in work the last time I used it, and I'm super duper excited to draft it again, despite how awkward it makes my fighting type matchups, being well, 2 fighting resistances that I would normally separate out into 2 Pokemon into 1. But it's super good for the team, and it forms a very formidable defensive core when paired with Skarmory, my next pick. So Skarmory, I really wanted to get a Hazard Stacker to help out Blood Moon and Mega Diancie for punishing switches with its ability to set Spikes and Stealth Rocks. It's a Steel Flying type, so that's one less like threat Ursa win a Blood Moon would have to bring like a Terra Electric or a Terra Fire for. But it has Sturdy for its ability, which allows it to whiv hits on 1 HP if it's at full, and a massive base 140 defense stat despite having pretty middling bulk otherwise. Its defense stat helps out the Slowking a lot by being able to take on the physical hits that Slowking doesn't want to take, and Slowking can take on the special hits that Skarmory doesn't want to take. So, yeah, nice little defensive synergy between Slowking and Skarmory. Trying to think what else this thing can get. Unfortunately, it doesn't get Baton Pass, but it gets options for like Iron Defense and Body Press. It can get Brave Bird. It gets Whirlwind to send Pokemon flying out of the battle. So, if you remember in ICPL, I used a red card in Deer Meowscarada to force out a Belly Drums to Titan. I could use Whirlwind to switch it out without having to, use red card. So, yeah, that is Skarmory. I've used Corviknight many times before, and I think I've only used Skarmory like once or twice, but I think that may have been in speed tournaments. But this is a really nice Pokemon, and I especially like it when paired with Lantern. Now, the back half of this team has changed. I say this because I am recording this in week 4. Mainly because I'm only recording this in week 4 because I wanted to focus more on ICPL and also do homework at school. So, yeah. But Lantern, Water Electric type, with Water Absorb and Volt Absorb, 2 abilities that help out Skarmory massively defensively, and it gets a Volt Switch to pivot out. So I can keep pivoting going with Meowscarada, Mega Diancie, Slowking, and now Lantern. Massive HP stat, which helps out its defense and SPDF stats, which are very middling. This thing gets moves like Thunder Wave, Toxic, Scald to spread status around, Volt Switch obviously to pivot, Ice Beam to hit like Dragon types and everything. So Lantern has a solid move pool. It's very hindered by its middling attacking stats, and its speed stat means it can pivot out slowly, but Lantern is very reliant on Wish to keep healthy, and that is just not something that you really want to do with a team like this that predicates itself on pivoting and making opponents, or forcing switches into spikes. So yeah, Lantern's not really the best fit for the team. I chose it at the time because it paired well with Skarmory, and I needed to pick quick because I was going to get skipped sooner rather than later, and yeah. Now at this stage of the draft, I had no clue what I wanted my team to be, so I started taking suggestions, and one suggestion by Pompadour Gaming, or I can't think of the alias, but well, it was Como-O. So Como-O, Dragon Fighting type, would need Terra, would be like a really nice Terra option, but unfortunately it was too expensive for me. So I just picked up regular old Como-O. It has very nice abilities with Bulletproof, being able to be immune to like Ball or Bullet moves like Shadow Ball, Aura Sphere, stuff like that. Soundproof to be immune to, well, sound moves like Hyper Voice, and Overcoat to be immune to powder moves like Spore. So very nice abilities that I feel are very underrated, specifically, in which I think Como-O is underrated, but I'm not quite sure how it fits on the team. 75 base HP stat, 110 attack, 125 defense. There is not a bad stat on here. Speed is a bit middling, but base 85 is a speed tier I need on this team, so it fits in very well there, and it has many ways for it to sweep you, despite not being able to, Terra. So, also, I keep predicating its offensive abilities. It's a very good defensive, because, I mean, 75, 125, 105 bulk is nothing to scoff at. And it gets nice moves like Stealth Rock and Toxic with Iron Defense Body Press. It gets Dragon Tail to phase sweepers out. It's really good defensively too, so Como-O is just a very nice Swiss Army Knight type Pokemon, and the only thing it can't really do is pivot. So, yeah. Moving on, I decided to pick up the Terra Captain. I got Magmorchar as the Terra Captain. It was only like a 1 point increase to make it my Terra Captain. So, yeah, I think Magmorchar was normally like 5 points. The making a Terra Captain costed 6, because this league has a thing called Terra Taxes, which means if you want to make a Pokemon your Terra Captain, you have to pay a bit more out of your points budget of 120 points. So like, my first pick of Ursulin of Blood Moon with Terra was 25 points instead of like 18. So that hurt the budget quite a bit, and I had to like get very budget picks. So that's why I couldn't really afford to get Como-O. as a Terra Captain. So I had to get Magmortar as a Terra Captain. This thing can pivot out with Teleport thanks to it being the evolution of Magmar. Base 83 speed stat, very, very middling. 125 special attack stat's pretty good. And this thing can generally be a menace with Terra. I don't know if anyone here watched SPL this past season, but I think it was Shady Penguin who had Terra Magmortar, and I think he did fairly well with it. I remember it being like pretty annoying to kill from what I remember, and I also remember seeing MV run a Belly-Drum Magmortar team in OU with Terra flying. So Magmortar has niches with Terra, and I'm hoping to use it somewhat in this week. That's Flame Body for its ability, which basically has a chance to burn Pokemon on contact, and Vital Spirit, which makes it immune to sweep. So, yeah. Next up, we have Avalugg. Avalugg is a Pokemon that I picked up primarily for a Rapid Spin user. It's a very, very bulky Ice type. Specifically on the physically bulky side, its def and special attack are awful. Same with its speed, because it's an Iceberg. It has the same sturdy ability as Skarmory, and this and Skarmory really accomplish similar things being a physical wall. Avalugg just is here for another Rapid Spin user, just to give me an alternative way to remove hazards that's not Skarmory, because Skarmory gets defog and it doesn't really want to defog away its own hazards. Oftentimes it wants to run an attack and roost along with a hazard to set. So yeah, that's Avalugg in a nutshell. And then finally we got just a random Pokemon, Lickitung. This is just a Wish Passer. I should have gotten like a Ghost type, but I'll fix that at a later date. So Lickitung, very bulky normal type. By virtue of it being a first stage Pokemon, or a Pokemon that can evolve further, it gets access to use the item Violite, which boosts its defense and special defense by 1 stage to kind of recoup the stat loss that it gets for not being fully evolved. It has a very, very nice ability called Oblivious, which I think means it can't be taunted, which is super, super nice for a defensive Cleric type Pokemon that's wanting to use Wish a lot. So yeah, it gets Wish, Knockoff, Seismic Toss. I think it gets Heal Bell too. Yeah, this thing is like one of my favorite Wish like passers in the game. It's up there with Screamtail and Vaporeon. Granted, Vaporeon's taken a bit of a hit because Alomomola is just way better, but Lickitung is very, very good, and yeah, excited to see what I can do with it. Granted, I have the advantage of hindsight, knowing that I did nothing with this. I never even brought it to a game, but yeah, that is going to be my draft for the Ditto's Draft Dungeon Draft League. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Sorry it's about a bit late for the folks in DDD. I mainly wanted to focus on ending ICPL as soon as possible. And now that ICPL is done, I can focus my efforts on this, finally. So, super duper excited for the team. It has a lot of offensive pressure, and I just need to, like, kind of force my opponents to just make uncomfortable switches in on, like, rocks and 3 layers of spikes. That's the plan here. I want to keep my opponents guessing and just keep pressuring them just to possibly make any bad decisions. So, yeah, that is going to be that. I will catch you all in week 1, which will be going up in about a week, even though I'm probably going to be recording this later tonight. So, yeah, that's going to be the team, and I will catch you all in week 1. Peace.